you made the switch from Lightroom to ON1 Photo Raw, and you are just overwhelmed with the interface, the amount of features that are available to you. Don't worry, I was in the exact same place a few years ago when I made the switch from Lightroom to ON1 Photo Raw. Now, the current version of ON1 has a ton of features, and it's easy to get lost. In this video, what we're going to do is unpack some of the most simple things that I see a lot of people getting confused with or just instantly overwhelmed. But by the end of this video, you'll have a great foundation to build on, and it'll take you deeper into learning how to use this amazing software. Now, let's go. Here we are inside of ON1 Photo Raw, and you can see that I am on the develop module. And the way that ON1 works is a little different than Lightroom, because what you have to do is essentially set up your image for the rest of the software to work well. All right. You could definitely jump to local or effects and get great edits, but just like a painter has to prime the canvas, you have to prime your photo. So let's think of develop as the priming stage. This is going to work with all of the raw data in your image if you're shooting a raw format. Now, if you're shooting JPEGs or editing a JPEG, then this is going to work exactly the same way, except for it's not going to do any of the raw processing, such as the camera profiles. But this is the first layer of edits that goes on your image. This is the very bottom layer of edits that go on your image. Then we have the local section, and this is kind of like the retouching or the cleanup of exposure, or making something very specific to a specialized location. Local adjustments are really designed to maneuver and paint in light wherever you need it, or remove light from areas where you don't need it. And then you have the effects section. The effects allow you to really manipulate your image and style it to get a look that is creative or artsy. Think of this like Photoshop, and it kind of works in a layer style. So let's see how this all works in action. I'm on develop, and what I'm going to do is just boost the exposure, and I'll probably open up the shadows a little bit, pull down my black point here, and maybe even contrast the image. No different than when you're working inside of Lightroom, if those are the types of adjustments you want to make. And then of course we have a structure and a haze slider here. Yours may be collapsed, so you just got to click on structure, and then it's going to expose those two sliders, the structure and haze. And then I can increase my structure just a little bit, and I can also mess around with the haze slider if I felt like there was a need for that. And then of course you have saturation and vibrance. Now, one of the things that you'll notice in this image is that it's a little noisy, right? If I want to get the info, I can click up here at the top and click on info, and you can see I shot this at 5000 ISO on a A7R4. If I want to reduce the noise, ON1 has its own AI noise reduction software built in. To get to that, you just click on noise and sharpening, and then it's going to change this little box over here. And you can see no noise AI is selected, but it's not actually doing anything. So I'm going to click on that one more time just to activate it. And it takes a little bit of time for ON1 to read the image. Now, this noise reduction is happening at the raw level. It's not happening on top of any other edits. This is why the develop section is all about priming your image and getting it ready for the rest of the sections inside of ON1. Now, you can see that the noise reduction has done its job. It has removed the noise in my image, and now I am ready to hit apply and go ahead and allow this to kind of sit on the image. Now, if you wanted to, you could sit here and finagle and use all of these settings, but we're not going to get into that. Just know that those are some options available to you. I'm going to hit apply, and we're going to allow ON1 to finish up the rendering, and then I'll zoom out and we'll take a look at what we've done in the develop section. Okay, so now you can see that we have our noise reduction applied to the image, and it's actually looking pretty decent. So this is where we started, and this is where we've gotten so far. Now, once you get done with the develop section, it's time to move on to local. Think of this like the masking tool inside of Lightroom. You don't have to overcomplicate it. Just think of it just like that. And that's what you are going to be able to do here. And to do so, you'll just add an adjustment, and then you can select whatever you want the tool to do. Now, by default, it's going to set to -1 on exposure. That's just a default. It's been that way for years. I'm not sure why, but you can easily reset it by double clicking the words exposure or the word exposure. And you could also do that by double clicking any of the text, or you can click the little control point on the slider or double click the control point on the slider, and it'll reset that particular slider. What you'll do here is you can paint in. I'll just bring the exposure back down. And let's say that I wanted to reduce the exposure in this area. I can increase my brush by using the bracket keys, which are very similar to what you did inside of Lightroom. So now I can just paint a negative exposure, removing some of that light. And what you see is it's modifying the mask over here. So if I want to get a view of that, I get the letter O. And now you can see what I have here. So once you've worked on your localized adjustments, it's time to move on to styling. Now, styling can do a lot of different things. All right. One of the cool things about ON1 Photo Raw is most of the presets that are designed by other creatives as well as the ON1 team only apply effects over here to the effects module. What that means is your develop and your local will be untouched. And this is the layer that sits right on top of the other two items here. So let me show you with using a preset here. I'm just going to select this one. And you can see that it has added in all of these effects for me. Now I can tune these however I want to. I can pull down the opacity of these effects. So if I don't like how strong they are at the onset, I can just pull down the opacity and it's going to make things that much smoother. But if I come back over to local, you can see that it's on its own editing layer and it's a cumulative process, meaning this is right underneath the effects layer. And then of course I have the develop section, which is the base and foundation of the entire edit inside of ON1. Now that's editing inside of ON1 in a nutshell, but there's an easier way. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so I told you that there's an easier way of editing, and that is by using a tool called Brilliance AI. Now, I know that this has been a staple feature that ON1 has pushed in the last couple releases of their software, so you're going to see a lot of content about this particular tool. However, the problem that I think a lot of people are having when they're switching from Lightroom to ON1 is they're not sure how to tune Brilliance AI. So that's what we're going to take a look at. I'm going to go ahead and hit Command and comma, and that's going to bring up my preferences module. All right. Now on a PC, you will need to go over to edit, and then down at the bottom, there should be something that says preferences. And then if you want to do this through the Mac computer, then you'll hit ON1 Photo Raw, and then you'll click on preferences. I like to use the keyboard shortcut Command and comma. Once you have that pulled up, on the very far tab at the top here, you'll see Brilliance AI. Now, this is the place where you can really fine tune the Brilliance AI tool to work the best for your images and your shooting style. Now, I'm not going to go into deep information on how to tune Brilliance AI here. Just know that this is where you would go in and do it. Now, if you want to watch a video that's dedicated to tuning Brilliance AI, check the description box below. I got a video down there for you. But once you have Brilliance AI tuned to work the way that you want to, you can hit OK. And then when you click on the Brilliance AI button, it's going to do its own calculations and render the image. And you'll see that here on the screen. So now Brilliance AI has rendered the image for me, and you can see what it's done. It's modified the tone and color section, which are all of like the basic modifications. And then it's even activated no noise AI for me because I tuned it that way. Here's another thing about Brilliance AI, just a bonus tip. You can actually change the method that it uses for the AI algorithm. Here's how to do that. Brilliance AI is probably the most recent and up-to-date version of modifying using the AI algorithm. But in older versions of ON1 Photo Raw, we had AI Auto and AI Match, which worked well for a lot of people and a lot of images. You can still access those by clicking on Options and then clicking on the method where Brilliance AI is located, and then you can just hover over AI Auto or AI Match. I realize that if you're switching from Lightroom, you're probably wondering what the heck is AI Match. And essentially, whenever you're using your camera, it shoots with a camera profile, and that profile is saved as a preview. And that's what you're seeing when you shoot in RAW. All right. And what this AI Match is trying to do is match as closely to what your camera produced as the preview JPEG. And that's what you're getting here. Sometimes that's what you want, and sometimes it's not what you want. But I want you to know that you have access to it right here. And then, of course, you can change your white balance and you can make that do whatever you need it to do as far as the white balance is concerned. And then if you want no noise AI to be automatically turned on, or if you want it to be turned on by default, you got all kinds of options available to you here. And then, of course, you have the retouch large faces, and that's really to activate the portrait AI, which we're not going to discuss in today's video. But if you want to learn more about Brilliance AI and how to tune it, then please check the description box below. Now, one more note, I almost missed it. When it comes to Brilliance AI, it's also capable of adding local adjustments. Now, in this particular case, it did not add any local adjustments. However, if you have local adjustments selected when you activate Brilliance AI, it can activate local adjustments for you, and it'll select animals, anything that it identifies as flora or floral arrangements, grass, whatever it may be, mountains, architecture, anything that's in the AI algorithm, it will pick that up and then it'll turn a few local adjustments and it'll make some intelligent decisions based off of what the software thinks should happen there. But you can always turn those off. And essentially what Brilliance AI is trying to help conduct or help you with is getting the basics of your editing done, priming your image for styling, and ultimately advancing or speeding up your editing workflow. That is the idea behind Brilliance AI, and you can do a lot with it. If you got questions about it, leave it in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer and help you develop a workflow that fits your needs and your style. The biggest thing that I see people getting frustrated or confused with inside of ON1 Photo Raw is the ability to mask pretty much anything inside of the software. The masking system is a little bit different and unique compared to what was available inside of Lightroom. Now, this is not a video that talks about which masking is better. All right. This is purely just to show you how to use the masking tools that are available inside of ON1 to get the idea that you have in your mind out onto the image. Now, what you can see here is I have a LUT that is going over the image. Now, if I turn off the LUT, you can see what it looks like without it and with it. Now, the beauty of masking, which you are already familiar with, is you can put things just where you want it inside of an image. And the way that masking works is This little rectangle with a circle in it is your masking icon. Anywhere that you see this means that you can apply a mask, and all of the masking tools are the exact same in each of these levels. Now, really quickly, you have the mask in a few areas. I'm going to show you. So the first one is the local area. By default, it turns it to a black mask whenever you activate it. And so you don't get the little circle with the the rectangle with the circle in it. And that's okay. I just wanted you to be aware that local adjustments are purely masked. All right. So that's the first place. The second place is up here in the layers. Now, this is going way above what you would normally want to use ON1 Photo Raw for, but remember, ON1 is like a mixture of Lightroom and Photoshop, so you have a layer-based editing workflow as well. Not going to get deep into that, but just know that you can use a mask on the layer level. Then you have your effects, and you can apply a mask to anything that pops up in this effects module. All right. Anything allows you to apply a mask inside of the effects. The next place that you have a mask, I'm not going to click on it because I don't want it to try to find the sky and take a little bit of time, but you can mask in on the sky, and then you also have masks available on portrait. Now, to be clear, the one place that you do not have masks is inside of develop. None of these items can be masked. All right. However, if you create a duplicate layer, you can use whatever effects that you apply here and mask them in using this layer, with the exception of the transform and lens correction. Those don't mask very well. But if you want to mask in noise reduction to a specific area and not over the entire image, then that is a way of doing it. You would just hit duplicate, and then you would make the no noise, or you would activate no noise AI on one of those layers, and then just use basic masking principles of hiding or revealing areas as you need across the image. Now, how does masking work? This is going to be in a nutshell, but if you want to go deeper in how masking works inside of ON1, check the description box, because I got a video down there and it shows you how masking works inside of ON1. But essentially, you'll click on the mask, and when you do, it activates the mask brush. Now you get this little bar up here at the top of ON1. If you are using Photo Raw 2025, then the latest version of ON1 Photo Raw 2025, you're going to have your masking bar, or the tools, up at the top by default. This is new functionality with the latest release, and it is extremely, extremely helpful. If you don't happen to have the latest version of ON1 Photo Raw and you're like, hey, Chris, my tools are hidden and I can't see them, and the only way that I can see them is if I hover over the top here. Well, what you're going to do is come up to the top, and then you're going to click on View, and then you're going to come all the way down here to the bottom. Now, yours probably has a check mark next to this option where it says Auto Hide Tool Option Bar. Make sure that you click that to get rid of the check mark, and then all of your tools will stay up there at the top. Now, I'm not going to go over all of these tools again. I have a video in the description that will walk you through the process of editing inside of ON1 Photo Raw using masks. But what you do have is the option for a brush tool, which is probably one of the most used tools in masking because of the flexibility that it provides you. And then you have the masking bug. Now, the masking bug encompasses both the linear gradient mask and the radial gradient mask. All right. Now, they call them a little bit different inside of ON1. Instead of linear gradient tool, it's now called linear top, bottom, left, right. Honestly, you can select either of these and it doesn't really matter, because when you click, it's going to give you the option to rotate it. And that's for the linear gradient. Now, if you want to switch it over to the vignette tool, you can do so. And then you can just resize them like so. Again, the video in the description will walk you through all of these. And if it doesn't answer the question that you have when it comes to masking, then by all means, please contact me in the comment section or through the contact form on my website. And I will help you out with masking because there are a lot of capabilities available. Now, one of the unique things about ON1, let me just go ahead and reset this mask. And in order, if you're probably wondering like, Chris, what did you just do? You just clicked on something. And if you right click the mask icon, you get a pop-up menu and there's some more features. Again, I'm not going to go into these today, but if you want to reset or invert the mask, then you can absolutely do that. This is probably one of the quickest and most efficient ways of doing that one task of inverting or resetting the mask. Short of creating keyboard shortcuts. But back to masking, what you can do next is click this little drop down and you can see there are a variety of tools available for masking. Now, anything that's above this little line, those I like to call the masking tool step 1. All right. And usually you can end at step 1. But if you want to refine your mask, then that's where you go into step 2. And that's these tools down here. I would be remiss if I didn't at least share that there is AI quick masking. And this is like a point click. So if I let the AI load, and if you do this early on with your image, it's going to be a lot easier and a lot faster. I'm doing it a little bit later in my editing process, so it needs to analyze the image. And once it does, it's going to give me a little crosshair. So we'll wait for that to pop up. So now I have the crosshair on my computer or on my screen. And if I hover over these portions, you can see that it's highlighting the animal in blue. So if I click that, then it is now selecting that. And now I have two options. I can either erase the effect that I'm trying to mask in, or I can paint the effect that I'm going to mask in. So I have to decide, do I want the effect on the bird or do I want it around the bird? And in this case, I want it on the bird. So what I'm going to do is click paint, and then I'm going to hit the check mark, and you'll watch ON1 do its thing. It has now created a mask on the bird. To view that, I can just hit the letter O, and now you can see I have successfully masked the bird using the AI quick select, and I have applied this LUT to just the bird. So if I turn this off and turn it back on, you can see the bird just gets a little bit more brown or red. So that is masking in a nutshell. It goes way deeper. I do recommend that you watch the video in the description if masking is the thing that you are the most confused with. So the next thing that I see a lot of people confused about or frustrated with inside of ON1 when they switch from Lightroom is not understanding how the effect stack works. Now, we already discussed developing and localized adjustments inside of ON1 and how those are prepping you for the edit inside of the effects. And this is where you really add like the creative styles. Now, if you're familiar with Photoshop, the effect stack works exactly like the layers do inside of Photoshop. And that's probably the easiest way of explaining it. So what you see here is I have a curves module. And when I click to turn this on, you can see what it does to the image. Now, the next filter up in the stack is the black and white filter. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and you can see it now stacked on top of the adjustment that the curve filter was making. So if I were to turn off the curve filter and turn it back on, you can see that it's actually impacting the image differently with this off and with it on. Well, as we continue to go up the stack, you'll see that I apply a LUT, and this is kind of a split tone look in the entire image, but it's trying to apply the LUT over all of the tones that were just remapped to black and white or to a monochromatic scale based off of the black and white filter. And then if I turn this off, you can see that I get back to my black and white filter. And if I turn this on, I get the LUT again. Then I have a photo filter, which is really just a big color filter. Like think of what you would have put in front of your lens when you photographed. Well, that's exactly what this is, but it's now covering the entire image. And I do have the amount cranked up pretty high here just for dramatic effect. But let me show you that if I were to click and drag this around, because you can move these after the fact, I'm going to get a very different look in the effects stack if I were to put the photo filter first, because now what I'm telling ON1 is apply the photo filter to my image and add this blue tint to the entire photo. Then make the curve adjustment, the S curve that I showed you earlier. And then I want you to turn the image black and white. And once all of that is done, I want you to put the LUT that I asked you to put on top of it at the very end. Now, this is probably one of the more confusing aspects of learning ON1 Photo Raw. So I'm going to make a dedicated video that talks purely about using the effects stack. But if you got questions about it, leave it in the comment section below, because I'll be more than happy to help you out. So another issue that I see a lot of people having with ON1 Photo Raw when they switch from Lightroom is not understanding how to use the AI style advisor or when in the workflow they should use it. In simple terms, you could use it whenever you want, as long as you're getting the result that you're looking for. 9 times out of 10, I think you're going to want to use develop and local first, and then come over to the AI style advisor. Now, you have 2 options with the AI style advisor. The first one is the My Style, and this is similar to all of those AI algorithms out there that kind of learn how you edit, and then it will try its best to apply a style to your image based off of all of the other edits. But in order for this to work, you have to have a lot of edits inside of ON1, so it has a good data set to pull from. The other option is the AI styles that the ON1 team developed, and it kind of uses a different algorithm to identify what would look best on your image. So let's go ahead and click the ON1 team one, because for everyone who's switching over, I think this is where you're likely going to want to start. And again, this is after you've done your develop and your local adjustments. Now, if I just hover over the style advisor, you can see what it's doing to the image. And this actually looks really nice on the photo. Again, these are only going to apply to my effects stack. It's not going to apply to my local. It's not going to apply to my develop. And that is the beauty of using ON1. This is where we really get to get creative with our edits, and it'll help us keep a consistent style in a series of images. Let's see if we find something that's worth slapping on this image, and then I'll show you what happens here. I kind of like this look. It's very narrow, focused into the bird sitting on the branch. For tutorial purposes, this works great. Now we can kind of analyze what's happening here. We get our stacks, all right, or our filter stack over here in the effects module. Now, if we believe that this is just way too strong, we can always come over to the opacity and we can pull that down and kind of blend this in to what we want it to be. And then, of course, if I wanted to, I can synchronize this across all of my edits. So you can see just how fast you can really get an edit done inside of ON1 by clicking on the Brilliance AI, doing your local adjustments, and then you don't even have to be on the effects tab to use the AI style advisor. You can just go ahead and select the AI style, apply it to your image, pull down the opacity, and then maybe as you get more familiar with the filters that are offered inside of ON1, because let's face it, there are a lot of them. Once you get familiar with it, then you'll be able to come over here and manipulate these filters to your heart's content to get the look that you really, really want in your image. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about the AI Style Advisor, check the description box below. I'll leave a link to a video that I created on how to use it. So the next thing that I find that a lot of people are struggling with is synchronizing their edits across multiple images. Lightroom used to make this really easy, and in ON1, it's a little hidden, but let me show you how you can do it. So I have this amazing edit on my image. We're going to use our imaginations today. Now, what I'm going to do after I get done with my edit down here is I'm going to switch over to the film strip view. So I'm going to come down to the very bottom here, click on this little drop down chevron and switch over to the film strip view. And this is just showing me the images inside of the browse module. You can do the exact same thing in the browse module. This is just a little bit easier of a method. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click there just to deselect those images. And what I'm going to do is select this image here with all of my edits. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift key, click on all of the images that I want to sync this to. Then I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to click on Settings. All right. Settings is the menu that you want as your drop down. And then I'm going to come down here where it says Sync Settings. Now, notice you have two options here. You can sync the settings or you can sync all settings. I'm going to use the Sync Settings option. And this gives me a dialog box. Now, this gives you the most control over what you actually send to all these other images. So if you have a unique crop, maybe you don't want to crop all of the images the same way. So this is why I'm showing this option. If you went with the sync all settings option, it's going to sync everything, the crop, whatever you did to the image that's highlighted in blue, whatever you did to that image, it's going to happen to all of your images. What I can do here is I can hit this drop down. Let me make this box a little bit wider. I can hit this drop down and I can select or unselect anything that I don't want to move over to these other three images. So maybe I really enjoyed the overall effect. Remember, we have three different segments that our photo is edited in. It's in the develop, then the local, and then effects. Now, I removed the local adjustment, so this is actually grayed out, and it's not going to allow me to select it. So if you run into that issue, you probably don't have any local adjustments applied to the image that you are trying to sync the settings from. All right. However, what I have here is the ability to select everything that is actually applied to the image. And notice the apply mask. Now, if you're working with a photo where nothing moved in the frame or not very drastically, and the mask would make sense to apply over multiple images, then by all means, check the apply mask. I don't think you're going to want to apply the mask across multiple images in most scenarios, but you know, it does give you the option, and that's the beauty of working in ON1. We have a lot of options. And then once I'm ready to sync this, all I have to do is come over here and hit apply. I'm not going to worry about going over any of these buttons. If you want to explore, you can do that. By all means, I do encourage everyone to explore, but I'm just going to go ahead and hit apply. And then we'll watch ON1 do its thing to these images right down here. Once it's done applying the sync to all of the images, boom, you see that it's on there. And so now if I click to these images, it's going to take a second to load because it has to apply the no noise AI. That's one of the things that I did apply to the images, and that's going to take some time for it to actually render. But ultimately, you'll see the images pop up with all of your edits, and that's the goal of using the synchronize setting. If you got questions about it, leave it in the comment section below. So those are the things that I see a lot of people struggling with, and I struggle with myself when I started using ON1 Photo Raw. Now, I'd love to hear more of the issues that you're having. If you are migrating from Lightroom and jumping into ON1 Photo Raw for the first time, what is it that you need the most help with in understanding or explanation of? Is there a feature that you are hoping that was in ON1 that you just don't find, that you used a lot inside of Lightroom? Let me know down in the comment section, because there are a few things that are not present in the current version of ON1, and hopefully in the future, we will see those things come to fruition. Now, if you want to pick up anything over at the On1 store and save a little bit of money, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It'll save you some money at checkout. And if you want to set up a one-on-one coaching session, which I help you develop a workflow that is specific to your needs inside of On1, then consider checking the description box below and signing up for a one-on-one coaching call with me. I will walk you through your entire process and help you understand the software to use it in your workflow. And I'll leave it at that. Until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.